Hello there YouTube, it's been a few weeks since I've done a video on here about WordPress development, so I thought I would do one today, catch you all up and get you something to watch. So today we're going to look at user taxonomies. This is something that has come in a project that I've currently been working on. How do you assign users to a taxonomy, a category, very much like you would do to posts or a custom post type. So that's what we're going to look at in today's video. If you haven't already, then please consider hitting the subscribe button below. We're getting towards 1,000 subscribers, which is awesome. So if you want to add to that, then you can hit that subscribe button. That would be great. And feel free to comment on anything you see in this video below, and I'll try and get back and answer as many as I can. And we'll see how we get on. So here we go then, user taxonomies. Let's have a look at my screen and we can get cracking on with this. So here I've got a default install of WordPress, which is what I'm going to use. I'm just working locally here, and I am going to be looking at this section. So this is a project we're working on at the moment, and it's got this team section in here. Fairly standard picture, and then it expands to show the sort of bio of the person. Now, traditionally, we do this as a custom post type with a block, perhaps, that the user can use. But then I scrolled down slightly and I saw this bit, which here is basically showing the posts written by this particular person. So that got me thinking, well, this person needs to be a user on the site to be able to assign themselves as an author to a post. Because here I'm just going to query and say, get me the posts that have been written, the latest posts written by this particular author. So then I thought, well, there's no point replicating the users in a post type, because we've kind of already got them in WordPress. We've got a user object, we can assign metadata to that user, they have a bio, etc, etc, and they even have a picture with an avatar, and you can even make that work with sort of media avatars as well with some plugins, which is worth looking at. So I thought, well, this has to be therefore a user in WordPress rather than a post type. However, I don't have some of the things I need, and one of them was, you can see it says consulting here. So these are the consulting team. We've then got the sustain team, the marketing team, etc. So I need the ability to be able to assign a category, and then I can say, well, actually, get me all of the users from this particular category that I can then display on the page. So I went about finding how to do this with user categories, and actually WordPress supports adding custom taxonomies to users. The problem is there is no UI for it, and therefore you have to build the UI as well. It's not quite as hard as it sounds, and that's what we're going to do in this video so you can learn about it. So stick around and you'll be able to easily add user taxonomies to your sites. So I've got my site open here. I've also got my code editor open here. And for ease of use in this video, I've literally got a file. I'm going to stick everything in the same file called user category, and I've put this in the Mu plugins folder. Obviously, you probably want to create a plugin for this. That's the best thing to do. You can switch it on and off. You could put it in your theme's functions file. You could put it in another plugin if you've got something running on a site like a utility plugin that's got all the customizations in. But just for ease of use, I'm going to stick it in the Mu plugins file. And also for ease of use, I'm not going to stick a plugin header on here. You probably would want to do that, obviously. So I've got some code that you can't see, which is what I'm going to use to sort of copy and paste this. The worst thing you want is to see me typing away while you're watching and making all mistakes. So I'm going to try and do this a little bit quicker for you so you can get the information you need. So the first thing we need to do when we're working with any taxonomies is to actually register the taxonomy. So here's the function that I've used to register the taxonomy. I've created a function called register user category taxonomy. I've given my taxonomy a name. I should probably prefix that actually with something. HD would be good. But I've taken a punt that no one else is going to use that. And then you can see the second argument here. This is the important one, is I've put user. That is the type of object that you want to assign this category to. Now, usually you would be putting the name of a post type in there, but here I am putting the object, the user object, because I want to assign this category or custom taxonomy to the users. Now, the rest of this is fairly self-explanatory. What I have set this to is a false argument on public. So I don't want this to have a front-end archive. Like, you might want it to, but you'd have to do work to make that work. I don't need this in this case, so I'm just going to leave that as false, and then it won't have a front-end archive page which shows all of the users in that taxonomy term, which it wouldn't do, and therefore you'd need to do some work. Anyway, Then you put all the labels in. That's fairly self-explanatory. I do want to show the UI in WordPress to be able to add new user categories. We can show it in the menu on the left, obviously, and which it won't do, but I will talk to you that in a minute. We don't want an admin column in the users list for this. You could do. Again, I'm not sure whether that would work without some tinkering, but it can be hierarchical. Show in REST is true. All this stuff is self-explanatory. Probably don't need the rewrite, actually, because we're not actually having a front-end, front-end archive page. And then we hook it into the init action in WordPress, and that registers our taxonomy. So if we do that and save and go back to our site and refresh, basically nothing happens because there's nowhere for this taxonomy to exist in this left-hand side. Users aren't a post, so the normal UI in WordPress isn't going to put it under there, etc. And it is there. WordPress has registered this taxonomy, but it's not actually doing anything at this point in time. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to actually put this menu item into the menu on the left hand side, and to do that we're going to create our own menu item, which is what I've got here. So let me just grab this piece of code and put that in here, and I'll talk you through this then. So registering the user category taxonomy admin page. So we want a page in the admin that allows us to manage the taxonomy terms for the user categories. So basically add user categories. So let me just talk you through what this bit does. So first of all, we're getting the taxonomy object for our newly created custom taxonomy user category. This allows us access to things like the labels, which we're going to use when we're registering our page. And then we're going to use the WordPress function add users page, which is very similar to add menu page or add submenu page, except it just puts it under the users item on the left hand side for us rather than us having to do that. And then the first few arguments are the page title and the page name or the menu name, and we're going to grab the menu name from the labels of the taxonomy. Those are the ones we did up here, so this will be this one, menu name, user category. And then this is the permissions. So basically, if you can manage the terms on this particular taxonomy, you will see this in your admin. And then finally, where is the slug? So this is the actual sort of URL, if you like, of where this exists. So it's the edit-tags.php page, which is the page used in WordPress admin for editing taxonomy terms, the list. And then we just pass it the taxonomy name in the taxonomy parameter here so that it knows which taxonomy that we want to look at. So if we save that and flip back over here and refresh, we can then go into users, and you now see we've got a user taxonomy, or sorry, a user category custom taxonomy there. If we click on that, you'll get the normal interface for a user category or a category taxonomy term editing screen. That was long-winded, but I got there in the end. So what you'll also notice is that WordPress has jumped me back into posts, which we will fix in a minute. So stick around and we'll see how to fix that. Because we don't want to be up there, we want to be in the users bit. So back to our code. In fact, we can fix that now. So let's just grab the code for fixing the parent page of this taxonomy term editing page. So create a function. Sorry, I didn't mention actually. Sorry, the user category is the admin page we just created is hooked into the admin menu action in WordPress. Which is what makes it work with the admin menu. So now we're going to fix this parent file, and WordPress has a filter called parent_file in the admin, where you can set a specific parent file of a new admin page for it to exist and stay in that section and stay open when a user clicks on it. So what we're doing here is we're creating a new function, and that gets past the current parent file that WordPress thinks is valid for this particular page. And in this case, it thinks it was posts because that's why it's opened the posts menu. So what we're doing here is we're basically grabbing a global for the submenu file, which is where we can tell where we are. I'll come to that in a second. Then we're saying if we've got a taxonomy in the URL, so we've got taxonomy equals something and that exists, then what we're going to do is we're going to check if it's the user taxonomy, so check whether it exists user underscore category, and are we on that user category edit page does that equal this file? So if we're on the edit page and we have a taxonomy in the URL, then we're just going to set the parent page, the parent file to a new one, which is in this case is users.php. So if we flip back to the browser, this page is users.php. So that's what we're going to set it to. And then we just return that because it's a filter. We have to return that to WordPress, and then that should work. So if we save that, flip back over here, click on our user category, and lo and behold, we stay in the users section and the user category is now highlighted, which works perfectly. So that's great. Now comes the slightly more tricky parts. So let's have a look at these bits and see if we can help you understand how they work. So we've got this working. What we now want to do is we want to edit the columns for the user category listing. So if I go to the page here, you can see that it's these are the columns that we want to edit here. So, whoops, completely on the wrong screen. Where are we going? Back down to our code. So what we're going to do is we're going to unset the column for posts, because traditionally what WordPress does is it tries to output a column to tell us how many posts have been assigned to a particular term. We're going to unset the post one. We're going to add our own called users, because we're assigning users to this particular taxonomy, not posts. Now this is a filter, and we're going to add this to manage_edit, and then this bit is the name of your custom taxonomy, in this case user_category, and then it ends with _column. So basically we're editing the columns that exist, and those columns get passed to our function as an array. That's all they are, okay, and we return them at the end. So we've now got a new column called users, and then all we want to do is to add the correct count for that. Remember, WordPress would think this is for a post or a post type, but we're for a user. So what we're going to do here is use the manage user category custom column filter, which is like managing the contents of those custom columns. And we're basically, our function gets past 3 arguments, which is display, which is actually an empty string according to the docs, which is a bit weird. The column that we're in, so are we on, if we just flip back here, are we in the name column, the description column, etc.? And then the actual term ID for that particular term of our custom taxonomy. So what we're saying here is if we are in the users column, then get me the current user category in this instance. So get the term based on the term ID and the custom taxonomy name. And then what we're going to do is just output in the browser here, in the table, the count of that term. So how many things have been assigned to that term. And then that should work for us now. And that won't do anything at the moment because we don't have any terms, so there's not much point in refreshing, but you can see we've got the users now in the end, so it will tell us how many users, rather than the word count, have been on there. So, next thing then, here's where it gets nice and interesting. So what we've got to do is, on a user's profile page, if I click on my profile, what we really want to do here is to say at the bottom here, allow a user to assign taxonomies terms to their particular user object. User object. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a form to this page, and we're also going to add it to the add new page. So when we add a new user, we'll be able to select the taxonomy user category here. So back to profile. Let's flip back to the code. Whoops. There we go. So let's do that now. I've got that over here. So copy this. This is a bit of a longer piece of code, but hopefully we'll talk through it for you. So here it is. As I said, a bit of a longer piece of code. So we're creating a function called HD user category form. So this is like the form that appears on the page that enables someone to choose a particular category for a user. Before I talk through the code, I'll just show where it's hooked into. So it's hooked into show user profile, which puts it at the bottom of the profile page. These are all action hooks. It shows on the edit user profile. So if I'm editing that particular page, and it also shows on the user new form, which is where we click add new, and then we'll have it on there. And I'll show you that in a second when we've saved it and talked through it. So we're grabbing the global option of page now, which we'll need later on. I think. In fact, we might not need that. We might not need that. I'll check that in a second. Then we're getting a taxonomy object for our custom taxonomy. We are then checking whether the current user is capable of assigning terms to that taxonomy. So we're checking for the capability there. And if they don't have that capability, we're just going to return. Now, you might want to let everyone do this, but it probably isn't something that you want like a contributor or an author to do. It's something that an admin or a site manager would want to be able to assign those terms. Then what we're doing is we're going to get a list of all of our user categories. That's the terms in our custom taxonomy, get terms for our custom taxonomy. And we're going to get them all regardless of whether they've got any users assigned to them. So this hide empty equals false means that even if a taxonomy term doesn't have anything assigned to it, please return it anyway. I want to know about it. But the default is it won't return terms that don't have things assigned to it. We're then going to lay out a little table in the back end. This is kind of the markup that you'd expect to see from other admin pages. I'll output a label, user categories, so that they can see that. And then what we're doing inside a field set is if we've got user categories, not empty, and just double checking as well that user categories is not a WP error. If, for example, the custom taxonomy wasn't assigned, it would be an error. It would return a WP error saying non-existent taxonomy. So we're checking for that as well. If we have that and that's passed that test, we're then going to loop through each category, dead straightforward. We're going to output a label for user categories dash and then the slug of this particular term. So if we've got like a marketing category, it'll be dash marketing. And then we're going to output the checkbox for this particular one because we want a checkbox tick list for the user to be able to tick which category they're in. And they might want multiple categories as well. If you didn't want multiple categories, you could make this a radio button. So input type is checkbox. We're going to store them as an array. That's what the double brackets at the end is. So in the posted data, we're going to store them in user underscore category, and that will be an array of data in case they check more than one, obviously. If you were using a radio button, that wouldn't be. We're going to give it an ID which matches the attributes of the label. Then the label matches up with the input for accessibility. We're going to set the value to be the term ID, so that's the ID of this particular category. That's what will get saved against the user, so we know which one they have. I'll come to that in a second. And then we're using this really cool checked function in WordPress to check whether the current user has already got this term, and then we can tick the box. We can check the box for them if they've already had it saved. So basically says, is object in term, is this user ID already stored against this term? If it is, and they both match, it'll tick that box for us. And then we're just going to output the name of the category, basically, so that we can see the name. And then hook those in. So let's save that. Let's flip back over to our user page and refresh. And hopefully at the bottom, there we go, we've got a user categories option. We've nothing in here. The reason we've nothing in here is because we don't have any user categories. So let's create one now. Let's create test. And let's create marketing. And let's create consulting. So these are maybe departments that you might have in your organization. So that's that done. Now if I go back to profile and go back to here, beautiful. I can tick these and so on. Now they're not ticked already because I haven't actually saved these as assigned. And if I actually tick one now and press update, it will still do absolutely nothing because we haven't actually done the save function, which is what we're going to come on to now. So here's the save function. Let me just grab this particular code, and I think this is our last bit of code. So this finishes off this little functionality. So paste this in here. Excuse me. So we're using a HD save user categories function, and our function gets passed to the current user ID. So that's the user ID that is we're assigning these terms to, etc. And then just to go to the bottom here, we're adding this action to personal options update, which is when they update personal options on the profile page. We're adding it to the user profile update page, so when that gets saved, they'll get saved, and when a new user is registered on that add new page. So let's talk through this particular code then. So first of all, again, get the taxonomy object for user category. Again, check for permissions and check that the current user has the edit user capability. If they don't, return nothing. Let's prevent them from actually saving any of this data. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to remove all of the currently saved categories against a user because we're going to update them with the ones that they have checked. So let's just get rid of them all, and this function in WordPress, WP delete object term relationships, does just that. We're going to delete all relationships between the current user ID and the user category taxonomy terms. So just get rid of all those relationships for me. Then we're going to say if we have posted data for this, so if someone has checked some of the boxes on that, then we're going to come into here and we're going to set the object terms based on what they have checked. So we're going to set which object, we're going to set the current user. What are we actually setting here? So these are the categories. So I'm running this, running the posted data, which is an array of term IDs. I'm running that through an array map, which sanitizes it, running it through absent. So each of these, make sure it's an absolute integer. Just a nice safety check. Which taxonomy we want to save those? A user category and the false. What does the false do? I can't remember. Bear with me a second. We'll find out what false does. I think it's cleans them and then sets them. I can't remember. Let's have a look. So the false on the end of there says append. If false, it will delete difference of terms. It will false. It will delete the difference of terms. Actually, I could probably set that to true then and remove that bit. I won't do it for now because I know this works, but I could probably set that to true and it will remove all the existing ones and then set the new ones, but we'll see. And then I'm going to clean the cache for this user. Again, I'm not sure whether I need to do that or not. Still, comment below if you know. And then, as I said, we're hooking this in. So let's go back to our site and where are we now? Back to profile and go to the bottom. So now if I check one of these and did I save that file? Did I save that file? No, I didn't, so it won't do anything. There we go. So I check one of those and hit update and then go back down. You can see it's saved it. It's already checked, so our little checked function is working. I can also tick another one and it should then resave them all. Beautiful. I can untick that one. So you know that's working beautifully now. There we go. If we go to user category, our count shows one person has the marketing term. So that's really useful. So there you have it. User taxonomies, in this case user categories, something that might prove very useful for a project that you're working on, and hopefully it will. So if you have any comments or questions about this video, please put them in the comments below. I will try and answer them. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. As I said, we're nearing 1,000 subscribers and we'd love to get there soon. Anyway, that's all from me. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.